Yeah, I'll call to order the October 11th, 2021 CEPD meeting. It is now 1 o'clock, and because I am remote, I'm asking Commissioner Pyle to act as chairman for the meeting. And I believe that's it, and it's all yours, Dick. Right, Jennifer?
Yes,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you. And thanks again, Dick.
Welcome to the monthly board meeting of the Captiva Erosion Prevention District on this Monday, October 11th at 2021 at 1 p.m. This meeting will now come to order. We'll do the roll call. Do we have any commissioners requesting to appear remotely?
I do.
Yes, Commissioner Mullins and Commissioner Maville requesting to appear remotely.
Is there a motion to allow the commissioners to appear remotely?
Yes, there is.
Is there a
I
second?
make a motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I do have a question. I didn't see Commissioner Sylvia. Is he there?
No,
He's missing.
Then I guess
He
I'm
is not-
questioning, sorry, I'm questioning whether we make a quorum, given that we've required 3 people for quorum in the past.
If I could allow our attorney, Ralph Brooks, to answer that question. Ralph and I spoke prior to this meeting and he gave me the solution. Ralph?
I got a call from Jennifer this morning that Mr. Sylvia would not be able to attend. Although we don't have a physical quorum, we are going to go ahead with the meeting and at least have discussion items. Hopefully we can reach consensus on these items. If we need to take any votes, we can take them and then ratify them at the next time we have a physical quorum. Today, we don't have any bond issues. We don't have any trim issues. We don't have any state law requirements. These are all CEPD housekeeping matters, if you will. So technically, the executive order from the governor has expired, but there's, other than an attorney general opinion, there is no state law that actually requires the physical quorum at this time. I think there may be some legislation coming up at the next session to allow virtual quorums. So it's at your pleasure, but we can proceed if you'd like, especially since we can't seem to get everyone together and business needs to keep moving forward.
Okay. Any discussion? We've just had the discussion. All in favor of this motion to allow commissioners to appear remotely? All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Administrative Director, please call the roll.
Chairman Maville?
Here. Aye.
Vice Chair Sylvia? Is absent. Secretary Kaiser?
yeah,
Treasurer Pyle?
Here. And I, yes, I,
Commissioner Mullins?
Mike. Heavy breathing. Okay, he talked about it before, so we're okay.
Okay.
We'll now, the approval of minutes will now dispense the reading of the minutes for the September 13th, 2021 board meeting. Do I have a motion to
I'll make a
approve?
motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes from the September 13th board meeting. Can I do the October 2nd meeting too?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
No.
Vice Chair, this is Ralph Brooks. I just wanted to note that Michael Mullins looks like he's MCMCA under attendees as opposed to a panelist. So it might be need to be moved to the panelist section.
We've extended the invite to move to panelists. He's got to accept it on his end.
Serious.
Okay.
Hello? Hello? Say that again. I'm sorry, you cut out. Admit, we did. And we extended an invitation for you to be a panelist, so you have to accept it right now. You see it? Okay, bye-bye.
Commissioner Mullins, can you hear us?
Yeah, but
Commissioner Mullins?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now we can. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
well-
dropped, my internet dropped me. I had to come back into the meeting. to
Yeah,
get
okay.
recognized the second time, so.
Okay, we're looking now for a roll call vote to accept the minutes of the September 13th and October 2nd board meetings. Administrator Director, please call the vote.
Secretary Kaiser,
yeah,
Will approve.
oh, approved.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Treasurer Pyle,
Approve.
Commissioner Mullins,
Approve.
Chairman Lavelle,
Approve.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will now dispense with the reading of the minutes of the September 13th tentative budget meeting. Do I have a motion to approve and dispense with the reading of those September 13th, 2021 minutes?
I'll make a motion to dispense with the reading of the September 13th tentative budget meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
No.
Administrative Director, please call the vote.
Chairman Lavelle,
Yes, I approve to dispense of the readings.
Secretary Kaiser,
Yes, I do approve.
Treasurer Pyle,
Approve.
Commissioner Mullins,
Aye.
Chairman Miller.
Yes.
So it was approved for 4 out of 4 votes. So we did not, excuse me, Treasurer Pyle, you had already previously in your previous vote approved the October 2nd final trim. So that doesn't need to be approved. So you can move on to item number 4, changes to the agenda.
Before we proceed, do any commissioners have changes to the agenda?
Treasurer Pyle, I actually have a change that just came to me in a text.
Okay,
So in your agenda, on your agenda, under new business, we had item 8B, which was the SCCF Coastal Resilience Plan. Unfortunately, I received a text message from Ryan O'Gara, the CEO of SCCF, who stated that Carrie Schumann, the Coastal Resiliency Manager, was ill today and wouldn't be able to present. So we're going to need to remove that from the agenda and look to either move it to a workshop or potentially our November meeting.
so that's just removing Terry from the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve that change?
You do have a motion to remove it, and I would strongly urge that it be placed in our next meeting.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Bless you.
All right,
Anybody opposed to that?
no,
Okay. Item 5. We will now open the meeting for public comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak? Okay. We'll now move on to the financial report. as the treasurer, I will update the board on the budget. In reviewing we have the initial end of the fiscal year performance, and there were no surprises. Our expenses were a little ahead of what our plan was because there were some budget items, some purchases that were made related to the renourishment project. But in reviewing the financials, I saw nothing that was of any surprise. Did anybody else have any other comments about the financial report? Okay, now we'll go to old business. Carolyn Weaver has filed a small claims lawsuit against CEPD regarding a payment dispute. Executive Director Nelson, could you please update us on the status of this item?
Thank you, Treasurer Kyle. I would like to actually turn this over to our attorney, Ralph Brooks, to give you more of an update and in particular regarding next steps. Ralph?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
We did receive a summons and a small claims lawsuit filed in the Lee County courts, and we're set for mediation on November 24th at 8:30 a.m. By Zoom regarding this matter. The court does ask that someone be appointed to be the party representative. I would be the lawyer, but there'll be a party representative that should be appointed with the authority to settle up to the full claim amount and anything below. I spoke with Jennifer, and Jennifer is willing to do that. We need to appoint that person to attend the mediation with me by Zoom on November 24th at 8:30. I think Carolyn is here as one of the participants, but not a panelist or a speaker. I think we were going to allow her to make her presentation. Last time we had a meeting, but we ran out of time or something similar to that. She's here today. And if we could, Dan, if Carolyn would like to say anything, could you move her over to the speakers panel? Perhaps, we can resolve it today, perhaps not, but we do have a mediation set for November 24th. So maybe Carolyn could present, and then you guys could ask any questions or have a discussion if you want to.
Carolyn, would you like to make a presentation?
Good morning, gentlemen. Carolyn Weaver for the record. I have spoken to you before about I am looking for payment for the $4,000, which would be a 14-day notice as required in my contract. I understand some folks believe we didn't have a contract. I believe that through the emails that have been shared with you, there is indeed a contract and that it required a 14-day notice because this has been going on for so long and I kept getting bumped off of the meetings, understandably, but still it's been going on for quite a while. I did file a claim. I am open to suggestions to getting rid of that. But, that's all I really have to say, unless you have questions of me.
I thought we had a lawyer.
Yeah, Harry, you and I and Mike Mullins were the only commissioners who were on the board at the time that this happened.
But we did get a lawyer, and what did they decide?
Mr. Brooks, if you're still on the call, could you answer Secretary Kaiser's question?
Could you repeat the question? Was this question, we did get a lawyer, or what was the question?
Yes, I thought this was all handled by an outside lawyer. because Mike was involved and
Oh, I
we-
think you're confusing that with the Joe Wagenti one, which was after Carolyn. Carolyn was before Joe Wagenti. And there was no lawyer and no investigation with regard to Carolyn Weaver. I'm the lawyer for the CEPD board. So I'll represent you in the small claims, but that'll be the first time there's any litigation regarding this. Previous to that, there was a request for payment of this invoice. There were some emails provided about a draft contract going back and forth, but no signed contract with Carolyn Weaver was produced. I think there was a contract with Hans Wilson, which is a different entity. And there was some controversy, or not controversy, let's say a disputed issue of fact as to whether or not Carolyn Weaver worked any days after the date of termination, which I'm citing from memory now, but I think it was December 14th or December 15th. I think Carolyn's making the argument that even if she didn't work any of those days during the handover to Joe Wagenti, she's still entitled to payment because she was entitled to a 14-day notice of termination is her claim. So the claim amounts to $4,000. I guess it's up to you as the CEPD board. You certainly have the authority to pay that if you want to. If you don't want to pay that and you want to continue to fight it in small claims, we would go to the mediation that's required on November 24th, at which point a mediator would be appointed to be a go-between the parties, asking Carolyn what she wanted or what would accept, and then asking us what we would be willing to provide. But that could all be avoided if you decide today, I guess, to reach agreement with Caroline. Caroline is on the phone, so I don't have a problem with you discussing it with her here and hopefully maybe resolving it. The matter is relatively small at $4,000.
Ralph, if I may, this is Mike Mullins.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah,
Why
so
don't you lead it off?
Carolyn did work for Hans Wilson, not under contract to the CEPD for a period of 2 years or whatever it may be. When that contract terminated, we were negotiating back and forth. So there were offers made of a contract that ultimately was never accepted because Carolyn was unwilling to work the 5 days a week that was the requirement. But she was paid during that period of time, and actually for a couple of days beyond. I think it was roughly 2 weeks that she was paid for in December. And since she wasn't in agreement with the terms of the contract that we were proposing, 5 days a week and whatever the number was, Joe Wagenti terminated her. I was informed after the fact that she would not agree and therefore he terminated her. However, if we were to give her $4,000, we would be paying a substantial severance. And my feeling is that she really worked for us for less than 2 weeks, was paid for that and a couple of days more. And it seemed, reasonable to me. However, we also discussed this previously and the board voted upon it in the past. So Ralph, you were involved in that. You were asked to give recommendation to the board and you said there was no contract. And while we didn't have litigation and you didn't have to appear before court, you did advise the board, and the board, which included at least me and Harry and Dick Pyle and I think Renee, I'm not sure about Renee, but we voted upon it. So I would say this is a nuisance suit, no disparagement intended, but it is a nuisance suit. However, it has gone on and Carolyn has not accepted the emails or the decision of the board in the past. And so I would say to rid ourselves of the nuisance, I would propose that we split it in half and give Carolyn $2,000 and be done with it. Otherwise, I would spend that money attending the small claims court and fighting it as being without merit.
Hey, Ralph, I have a question. It's Renee. Can you hear me, Ralph?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so my question is, and I wasn't there, but how come she isn't going after Hans? She was an employee of Hans and then Hans left and then she was, I don't really understand the background, but.
Renee, that contract terminated and she and Joe Wagenti, who had been subcontractors of Hans, were negotiating with the CEPD to continue to work on a contract basis directly with the CEPD.
I got you. So you're all about back and forth.
Another important fact, Renee, another important fact is that during the tenure before Joe Wagenti came on board, and for the bulk of the time after Joe Wagenti, Carolyn had been promoted by Hans to be the administrator, whereas prior to that, she was working at half the salary as the deputy administrator.
Okay.
Hans talked to all the board members and me last to see if he could change that and make Joe the administrator and she the assistant, back to the role that she had had previously. She had agreed with it. Joe had agreed with it. Hans had agreed with it. Personally, I opposed it, but when they came in looking to negotiate with the CEPD directly, they agreed to work in that capacity, and she would work for Joe rather than the other way around. So to me, that led to the requirement of having 5 days a week for sure, and a different compensation package, which turned out to be unacceptable to Carolyn. The other thing is Bob Gray was consulting with us on some strategic work at the time, and we arranged his availability around before Christmas was one long weekend. And Carolyn was also asked to come in for that one long weekend. And she indicated that she was not willing to do that or work 5 days a week. So she basically wasn't willing to meet the requirements of the CPD at the time. Wagenti decided to just let her go, and the board had no issue with it. So again, I would say I'd
In
like to
other
make
words,
a
Mike,
motion.
you were just
I'm talking,
negotiating.
please.
There was
I'm
no
talking,
contract.
please. Let me finish what I'm saying.
Sorry.
Let Mike finish.
I would like to make a motion that we offer her a settlement of $2,000 or go forward and fight it in small claims court.
I will second that, Mike.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, you can't vote on anything. We don't have a quorum.
We can, we'll ratify it later.
Well, I would like to get some consensus from the board as to what they want to do about this Carolyn Weaver matter. And then Jennifer and I will take care of correspondence or attending the November 24th.
Well, let's
mediation.
call the vote then.
I think we need a second. We need a second first.
There's more I'd like to
It
say.
was a second. Harry seconded it.
Yes.
You can
Okay,
still
now
have
it's up for
discussion.
discussion.
You can still have discussion,
Yeah,
Chairman.
so what I would recommend is, it's not about the money. I'm really not comfortable with the fact that there's negotiation going on. I think and I did look at the emails, if someone doesn't do Saturdays, or, the directorship is not like, so many hours and, like a clerk or something. It's a serious directorship job. And I'm trying to understand how, just from an optical perspective, why we're not going to mediation, so we can say, hey, listen, we mediated it. The judge decided X, the end. If we're throwing someone $2,000 who worked a portion of the 2 weeks and then wants an extra 2 weeks, for what I'm hearing is, to me, it's bad karma. And obviously she's tenacious about receiving this money, but I just have a real problem with throwing people money just because they feel they're entitled, when I'm hearing it was a negotiation. Candidly, if I was chairman and someone said, well, I only work so many hours and this and that, I say, thank you very much. Perhaps this is not the job for you, because being a director of the CEPD requires commitment. And it's like, the only example can you imagine working for Bloomberg and saying I only work so many hours a week and getting paid 100 and some odd thousand or 200,000 or 90, or Goldman Sachs. People in a directorship job, there's not like so many hours. So I take umbrage to that. So I say, if we're concerned about optics or about doing the right thing, it's not about the money. I would say we can deflect it by letting a judge decide a mediation, but just, Michael, with all due respect, to throw a $2,000 and make it go away, to me, I don't think it's right. And I don't know anything about what that said, but to me, the elements just are bad karma. They were paying someone because she obviously feels entitled to it, but for me, someone suddenly is getting double their salary and then it gets not reversed. They're negotiating. They can't negotiate on doubling their salary. And then the other person cans her and then they come to us. That's why I said, can she go to Hans for the $4,000 or whatever?
Hans' obligations were fulfilled when he gave whatever notice, 60 days notice or whatever he gave under his agreement. So he had
how
no
long did Carolyn
obligations
work
past
at
November of that year. In any event, executive director I would like to remind you that under the rules of procedure, the person who makes the motion has the privilege of calling the vote. And so
I second the
call the
motion.
vote. It's been seconded and I'm calling the vote. So would you please ask each of the commissioners how they vote on this settlement proposal?
Sure. Legislative May, would you please call the vote?
Chairman Lavelle,
No.
Vice Chairman Sylvia,
Could you clarify for me what exactly is the motion?
The motion is to dispense with what I consider to be a nuisance lawsuit that we've had many discussions on and we voted on before. It's wasting a lot of the district's time. So I propose that we split the baby and settle and offer $2,000 rather than the $4,000 that's being requested by Carolyn Weaver.
Then I vote aye.
Secretary Tyson,
I second it.
Treasurer Plant,
No.
Commissioner Mullins,
Aye.
Motion is passed 3-2.
So what was the final on that?
it passed 3-2.
Okay.
3-2-4, Harry.
So.
If I could get a motion to appoint someone to be the representative at the mediation.
Well, Ralph, we don't need mediation if she agrees to the $2,000.
That's right.
That motion failed. I thought I heard it was 2-2.
Yeah, I know it passed. I heard three people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, 3-2 it passed. Okay, I'm sorry, my mistake.
Yeah. Can we ask Carolyn, since you're here, and do you want to accept this settlement?
I have a couple of things that I would like to say if I am.
Yes.
I appreciate your time. Before I accept an offer, I would want to see it in writing, of course. And also, I would like confirmation of where the board had voted on this issue before, because I looked for that diligently, I believe, and could not find it. I did see one time where it was discussed. It was not, however, ever voted on. I'd also like to clarify that Joe and I were reversing roles. Indeed, the contract with HWA was completed. My emails attached show that Chairman at the time, Mullins, referred to that contract, that it would be like a continuation of it, which is what led me to believe there would be a 14-day notice. I did accept the agreement that was offered to me through Joe, because the emails were going back and forth with Commissioner Mullins on a holiday week when I was actually scheduled on vacation. I always worked at least 5 days a week for the commission. I worked 4 days from the office and 1 day from home. Weekends would be on call, and I would talk with Joe on many of occasion. But none of that really matters. I would just like to see a couple things in writing, and then I can make my
Point
decision.
of clarification,
Certainly.
Attorney, I'd like to know if we can redo the motion. I'm going to withdraw my vote because we're continuing to make this a nuisance and drag it out. And the idea of a settlement is to put a settlement on the table. If it's acceptable, great. But since it doesn't seem to be acceptable, and this is going to continue, I'm going to reverse my vote. So I would like to make a new motion. I would like to make a new motion that we no longer settle it, that we go to court, because this has really gotten to be much too burdensome to the court.
Mike, this is Harry Kaiser. And, you know, this is what we want to do. So let's not withdraw it now. Let us say she's going to take it and walk away, or she's not. And if she's not gonna do it, then we'll,
Well, she apparently is saying no. She wants to drag us into further research and.
we don't want to drag on.
Well, that's the whole point, is I think
Yes,
this is-
I
this is a
realize
make a
that.
decision, yes or no, and that's.
Carolyn?
Otherwise, I would make a new motion and withdraw my support for the earlier.
Yeah.
settlement.
So Carolyn, you have an opportunity right now of taking the money and walking away.
I'm sorry, this is Executive Director Nelson. Ralph, can you clarify the procedure in terms of, once a vote is made, do we have to do, we have to do a motion to undo that previous vote, correct?
Yeah, let's first ask Carolyn if she'll accept the $2,000 without having to find a motion or minutes where they voted on it. I'm not
Right.
sure whether they just discussed it or voted. I don't think that's really relevant. I think what's relevant right now is will she accept the 2,000 or not? And then I think Mike is saying that if she won't, then he wants to go ahead and appoint someone to go to the mediation and fight the case in small claims.
That would be you, Mac, right?
For the
I would
record,
go to
this is,
small claims and bring Jennifer is my recommendation.
Yeah, let me get a point of clarification, please.
Or Mike, because he seems to know a lot about it and he was here before.
I can't go down to the court, but point of
It'll
clarification.
be a Zoom hearing.
Okay, what is the date? What is the date of the hearing?
It's right before Thanksgiving, November 24th.
Okay. So this would have to drag out to do this research, go have another board meeting, bring it up again, et cetera. I thought frankly that we were being generous by offering 2,000, given the position that both Commissioner Pyle and Commissioner Maville had, or Chairman Maville had. My feeling is if we can dispense with it, the $2,000 offer is on the table. If it doesn't get accepted at this point in time, then my feeling is we go ahead and go to court. So I think
I agree 100%.
Carolyn.
Mike, I agree with you 100%.
And I
So
would say
Carolyn-
that the evidence would show that, number one, Carolyn wrote an email that said her understanding with Hans Wilson is she worked 4 days a week and Friday was optional. So to me, Friday was never optional. It was always a 5-day job. That was one point that was made. And there were several other points of discrepancy there. And we can dispute this back and forth. Somebody would have to go and dig out all the emails. I see them in my head because I read them all in the first place. And I left it up to Wigenti. And the only reason why I'm even proposing any settlement, Chair Maville, is that Wigenti had a private meeting with her. She later came back and said in one of these meetings that I had told him to fire her. In fact, I had not. I was waiting to hear her final decision. He told me that she had given him a decision and was going to work 4 days a week, and that was the deal, and couldn't come in that weekend. So I don't know what really happened. So in the interest of giving her the benefit of the doubt, I would split it and go with $2,000. If she accepts that, fine. If not, then, fine. We'll go to small claims court.
Well, Carolyn, it's up to you.
that's fine. I'll accept it. I'll accept the 2,000 and I'll withdraw the claim in court and be done with it.
Yes.
We will
Thank
send
you.
our lawyer and executive director will send you a letter of confirmation on that. Okay, so
All right.
thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you,
Thank you.
Carol.
I will look for that.
Thank you, Carolyn. And I had been on the board for a very short period of time, was not involved in any of this discussion. And looking at it professionally from the outside, I thought it was very poorly handled. And I appreciate Carolyn being willing to
Right.
accept this agreement.
Mhm.
Okay,
Hold on, I would like to get a point of clarification. What do you think was poorly handled?
Uh-oh, here we go.
I consider
just-
that a personal slur because my feeling is that she originally was hired as an assistant under Damon Grant, and then he left and Hans promoted her to the senior position, doubled her salary, and she had a good year plus of being paid a higher level. And then when there was questions about whether she was capable of doing the job or not, Hans went out, which I think was a violation of sunshine, and called every other commissioner but me. They called Harry and Mike Lanigan and so on, and called me last to say all the commissioners agree that we should reverse the role and promote Joe to the senior and demote her to the second position. But in the process, he wanted also a $30,000 increase to accommodate that. So all I'm saying is that to me, he left, he gave us notice. The board asked me to negotiate before, to see if we would continue those people or hire new people. I negotiated in good faith with both. There's documentation, and if you haven't read the documentation, then you just don't know what's going on. The documentation was an attempt to make an offer, get an acceptance. It wasn't accepted. In the end, Wajenti said she's not accepting the terms. It's done. And there was constant documentation to Ralph and discussions with Ralph to be clear on this. And the only thing is that she's been very persistent through the whole thing. And rather than continue to waste our time with this nuisance suit, we're throwing a settlement. So I don't understand what you think was not handled appropriately, given the fact that none of the board stepped in, including you, Dick, to help with the process of trying to consummate that contract.
I wasn't even on the board, I believe.
You were on the board. You were on the board.
See, I mean, let's end, it's over.
Yeah.
Amen.
It's over. Let's move on.
It's a small amount.
Save the disparagements for other circumstances, please.
Okay, moving on to other old business, the tourist development tax funding grant for beach parking. The next agenda item is the tourist development tax funding grant for beach park maintenance. Executive Director Nelson, could you please lead the discussion regarding the tourist development tax funding grant?
Yes, thank you so much, Treasurer Pyle. So in your packets on page 33 and your agenda item 7B, you will see an agreement between the CEPD and the Tourist Development Council from Lee County. And you will read our agreement. We had applied for grants shortly after I started, and we were awarded $127,500 to continue our maintenance of our parking lot. That assists us in paying our parking lot attendants, as well as overall maintenance of the lot. And then we were also awarded $231,000 to begin design and engineering for a parking lot upgrade. So I wanted to make the commissioners aware that we received over $358,000 in grant
How much
money.
did we get?
Total?
Yeah, total.
$358,000 from the TDC.
I love you.
So I know that we've had a lot of discussions since January, since I first started, regarding Allison Hager parking lot, what that's going to look like, what the upgrades would look like. So just know that the funding is there for us to begin this, should this be the direction we decide to move forward on. I know we talked in our last two meetings, or maybe our last meeting, we spoke about potentially looking at the Shipley lot and trading with South Seas. But now that they're under new ownership, I still have yet to meet them and haven't even begun this conversation. So just know that we have the funding available should we decide to go this direction moving forward. So I just wanted to say thank you publicly to the TBC in Lee County for believing in us and for awarding us this money, because they really make it possible for us to generate the revenue from the parking lot. So thank you.
Hey, Jennifer, this is Commissioner Mullins. I have a question. Unfortunately, my internet has been fading in and out, so I didn't hear everything you said, but you mentioned about the contract for the porta potties. Are they covering 100% of that?
They, yes, correct,
Yeah.
yes.
So the only reason I asked that question is from time to time, I know certain commissioners have questioned whether we're paying too much or whatever, but it's basically 100% covered by the TDC. So we're getting high quality service, keeping the public happy, and it's not costing the taxpayers of Captiva anything, essentially. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and then
Did they cover the difference between what we paid for the porta potties and what we?
they cover the
Okay.
expense, the monthly expense of maintenance for those porta potties.
Okay, but they didn't cover any of the expense related to the Cadillac thing. I mean,
They did, and we actually had to reimburse them when we sold it.
We reimbursed them, but did we eat the $22,000 difference, or did they?
We did.
Okay,
We
thank
did.
you. That's what,
Yes.
that was my
So-
understanding.
And so if you'll recall, Treasurer Pyle, back when I started back in January, and I think at our first meeting in February, that's one of the first things that we took care of was to sell that, be done with that, and then hopefully we're able to, as Commissioner Mullins pointed out, show the taxpayers of Captiva that should we decide to go to a more permanent structure and more permanent restrooms, the return on investment will be quite short, right? We'll be able to show them.
So I was just curious as to who ate the 22,000.
It was us.
Yeah.
It was us, yes.
Executive Director Nelson, I'd like to ask a question. First of all, I think that's an important question because it brought up the fact that the board had approved upgrading the lot, but had not specifically approved the acquisition of that, high scale limousine style, Cadillac style porta potty. And what happened was I was the chair at the time, Bob Walter was the treasurer. And what happened is Wigenti was beating a path to Dave Jensen to get signatures on things. And he was a commissioner, but he wasn't in the authorized signature. But the bank he had been chairman and the bank had not changed the record. So he was signing off on things and not trying to disparage him in any way. He thought he was doing the right thing, but they sort of end run the treasurer and end run the chairman and got this thing ordered when in fact the board had approved it being done, but subject to getting permits and plans and so on. So the idea is that one, our standard operating procedure should be very clear as to who authorizes, purchases. And that was like a $50,000 purchase or whatever, substantial amount of money that I didn't find out about till after it came and we had nothing ready for it. We paid storage for probably 18 months because we weren't prepared to use it. So let us learn an important lesson from that. And let's make sure that our bank records show the appropriate current treasurer and current chairperson, et cetera. And in addition to that, when you're authorized to do things on upgrading the lot and so on, come back with a detailed plan so that the board is aware of the plan before you go out and make $50,000 expenditures. Insignificant numbers I'm not worried about, but when there's major things, the board ought to be very well aware. And we should get all of our permits and everything approved before we go ahead this, I know, so I'm being redundant here. But what struck me about that is that we could end run, the executive board, if you will, and do something substantial. And in the end, we took a hit of what was it, $20,000, I think Commissioner Pyle said. So that's all I have to say for that.
Well, I just wanted to also add to that the reason that I'm bringing this forward to you all is because it is a substantial grant that we were awarded. And you're absolutely correct, Commissioner Mullins. What happened previously should be good lesson or indication of, again, looking forward, and hopefully with our strategic planning, we'll be able to do this. We're really looking forward to the future and figuring out if we do get a more permanent structure, again, in the long run, we'll be saving our taxpayer dollars. So I think that's a good point. So I wanted to bring this forward to you all because it is over $350,000.
A lot of money.
Chair Maville, you will be getting a DocuSign to sign this agreement so that we can go ahead and give it back to the TBC. So thank you all.
Yeah, Jennifer, I have a fast question. So when Allison Hager parking lot was closed, were we still getting charged for services of the $8,000 per month?
No, actually, we suspended services until the project's complete.
Okay, good.
However, we've had a bit of an issue, even though Allison Hager was closed and now considered a construction site, which is actually considered a felony if you trespass on that construction site. We do have individuals who are still using the restroom. So I did order a clean out, just one clean out for tomorrow because I wanted to get them cleaned out. And then we're gonna try zip tying them closed again in hopes that nobody will actually trespass and utilize the restrooms.
Yeah, I mean,
The construction workers have their own porta potties.
no,
My
I
concern-
understand.
Of
So
course,
what do they charge to show up once? Because they charge you $200 a day for a month, actually more, $250. Which
I'm
is
actually-
what you get charged for a month when they make.
yeah, I'm gonna send that out. I contacted Robin, the owner of the company, this morning when I was made aware that there was an issue. And I contacted her and said to her, can you send me a quote for coming and doing this week? And so she has not sent that to me yet, but I will share it once I get it.
She should just send someone out as a professional courtesy as a gift since she's making a killing on this. I mean, come on.
Well, and it'll be open now, November 1st. So we just have this month to get through, right?
Once demobilization finishes, and we probably would like a chance to go through and inspect the lot and do anything while the cars are out of there, but I would assume the goal would be safe before the 2nd of November at the latest.
When do they plan on being finished? Before Christmas, I hope. Yeah.
Yes.
Let me move to,
Well, I've actually already helped out and I've done C as well, so we can move on to the beach nourishment update where then
Yeah.
Daniel, you could probably introduce Nicole to the individual members.
Before you do, may I be recognized for a minute? I
Yes,
just wanted to say congratulations on getting the size grant you got and the support to keep a superior clean bathroom and do other things with the parking lot. When I first joined the board back in 2006, we only ever got money every 8 years or so when on the renourishment, and we didn't put requests in during the year. And that changed significantly with Damon Grant, but you've continued to keep that high standard of looking for a lot of compensation. I want to congratulate you and thank the TDC as well.
great, thank you, Commissioner Mullins. All right.
okay,
Treasurer-
Daniel, give us the update.
Well, as you all are aware, the project began construction on September 1st. It was very slightly delayed due to a couple of tropical storms that passed through with some turbulent waters out there. As of this morning, the estimated completion of beach fill is scheduled to be done by October 23rd. Following that, they're pending the planting of 350,000 plants along the dune that we constructed. As of this morning, they are approximately 4,300 linear feet from the end of the beach. So they're just flying through. They've had some slight mechanical issues, but they corrected them. They're going to recalibrate their machine tomorrow, so hopefully we'll see even increase in acceleration.
What are they're putting out seals, so they're doing,
This the combination of the 3 plant CO, sea grapes.
So it will be COs that are planted, so we'll check with that. So the contractor, after they come and complete the beach fill portion, they'll come in and plant the COs. So they're gonna work with Jennifer and Daniel, dual walk ahead and delineate areas that are gonna.
and you're gonna plan from where they can now seaward, right?
So they're gonna plant from a specific space on the beach profile, landward. So some areas, there was a small little dune constructed. So pretty much the flat top of the dune will be planted with COs.
Uh-huh.
And then we'll work with Jennifer and Daniel to identify if there's any pathways that need to be left open, or if there's small voids in the dune that could benefit from additional planting from there.
Is that Nicole speaking? I can't tell who.
Yes, that's Nicole Sharp.
Okay, hi Nicole. May I ask a question on the dune plantings?
Yes.
You had sent me an email from one of our constituents requesting the opportunity to buy some of the plants, and I
Yes.
reported to you that in
Yes.
the past, we had usually over-ordered for a variety of reasons and had plants available to give to the public if they wanted to add these native plants to their own dunes. What is the status of that at this point in time? Are we going to be over-ordering? Are we going to make them available to the public to pick up some dune plantings if they want to?
So at this point, the plan is to field fit all the plants as need be, as they fit in, and if there's still an appetite following the project, we can maybe organize another purchase, but it's a lot to the contractor. We initially started at 75,000 plantings, and then we moved up to 350,000. So I think it's really the best interest to see where we are after the 350,000 and then continue on aside from involving Great Lakes in this.
I think you might find that there are some that are not installed at the end. They typically do bring more down just in case some are damaged or whatever. So whatever's left over, I would propose we invite the community to take them, but we don't need to decide that at this point. We can see what happens at the end.
Understood and agreed.
And when does the Hagerup, I missed part of what you're saying because I was fading in and out, but when does the Hagerup lot go into service again for parking?
I would anticipate it reopening for the second week in November. Just conservatively, it may be sooner than that. But just to give them time to demobilize all their pipes and equipment out of there and then fix anything they may have cause issue too with their utilization of our parking lot.
But it sounds like it'll be open for the Thanksgiving holiday.
Absolutely.
I continue to get positive reports from anybody I know that's on the beach, mostly regarding the lower half, but I've heard wonderful things, and I follow some of the Facebook Captiva sites and so on, and generally people have been very positive about it. So congratulations. I think we're doing a great job.
Oh, it's great, it's a great
Yeah.
project. And the sands look nice and white because.
Beautiful.
Hey,
So
Jim,
everybody's happy.
Dan, this is Renee. I spoke with Nicole, and in order to complete the vegetation, it's going to be tight because they're planting 18 inches on center versus the normal 12 inches. Because otherwise, they don't think there are enough plants out there to even get an order of that nature. So at 18 inches on center, that's 350,000 plants. You think there might be some left? I doubt it.
So we estimated the 350,000 plant quantity using the estimated dune width that's being constructed. So there's a possibility there could be some left over, but also some voids in the dune might be filled. So that would take the additional plants and put them more into the existing dunes.
Right.
But we'll work with
I
the
didn't know you
contractor.
were there. Hi, I didn't know you were there. Sorry.
Yes, yes.
Okay, well, so if there's some left over, fine. If not, if we were to reach out to the constituency and say, we might do a large order, it's going to cost X, let us know, we'll do a group order. Is that something we could orchestrate if there was, like an order?
I don't think we should be buying and accept compensation from the public for them. We either have extra somehow or we buy extra, but I think we don't want to get in the business of trying to be retail.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're not looking for money, but I'm just saying people have reached out to me personally and said, hey, I'd love to plant some bald spots. And I heard that they're available. And I said, I don't know, it's a big project, but I'll keep in touch. So
Jennifer, I don't know if you've gotten any of this yet, but I know some of the people, including some who've been former commissioners, have complained to me at times in the past about too many plantings in front of their property. So sometimes there's been a tendency to skip it. What is our way of handling that? We're just going to put them where we are getting recommendations from the engineer, and that's the end of the story?
So Mike, we're gonna have the contractor walk ahead and delineate areas where the plants will be installed. So Jen and Daniel will know exactly where the plants are going in. And if there's any concern of we don't want to put the plants there, then they can modify the planting plan in that area or talk to the contractor and maybe leave a gap within that area also.
You can always put them in front of my
Yeah,
house.
Harry will take them all.
Me too. I'm with Harry. I love the dune
It's
planting.
unbelievable.
Take as
Sand
many.
I
dunes.
wouldn't mind knowing if there's actual people that say that. I'd like to know their names just to make sure that it's not some mean
No, I
person.
will tell you private. I'm not making it up. Trust me.
All right,
No.
no, someone could jam someone else and say, oh, I
When
don't.
I first joined this board in 2006, I was interviewed by the newspaper, and I talked about the dunes. And I talked about how much I love the dunes and the dune critters and followed the tracks through the dunes of.
And they work.
And I have to tell you, the item went into the Captiva Current, which was the paper at the time. And the late Stella Farwell, who's no longer with us, complained to me that they were not natural, that dunes are not natural, dunes are man-made, and that we should not be encouraging the dunes because she felt that from parts of her house, she didn't have a view. Similarly, I was asked by Kate and Ken Gooderham, who were doing public relations work for Fort Myers Beach when they were doing a project, if I would write some letters to their paper about it, because a lot of people there complained that they couldn't get, their views were being affected because the dunes were getting too large. So there's been a number of experiences of that. And my feeling is that if they're walking ahead and we see somebody who's not happy, we have an opportunity to skip that space. They'll eventually spread there anyway, and that's exactly what happened in Fort Myers Beach when they wouldn't, not only the dune plantings, but they also wouldn't allow nourishment in certain areas. They wouldn't give easements. So they got these big dips in the beach. And then of course the winds came into play and the storms came into play and it all evened itself out. And I'll talk to you privately about some of the people.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to new business. Oh, you saw.
So I just wanted to bring up the sea turtles.
Oh, yes,
So I
please.
was speaking with Kelly Sloan from SCCF. And she provided me with some numbers of the sea turtles that were moved. She is still performing an in-depth analysis of how the sea turtles were affected from the nourishment project during sea turtle season. So the overall, whether positively or negatively affected them, is still kind of out. But she said that there was 127 out of the 233 nests laid on Captiva were relocated during this nourishment project. 79 of those nests were moved to Sanibel. That began on July 6th. And 48 nests were moved from the South half of the island to the north half of the island at the beginning of the project. From those, 5,395 hatchlings emerged out of the 79 relocated nests, and 3 of the nests are still incubating on Sanibel. And again, she was going to report back to us once she's done her in-depth analysis of the sea turtles. I'm really interested to see how that turns out. We did have some pictures that were sent out in your packets of the before and after of the beach nourishment project. Unfortunately, the materials packet that was going to be shared on the screen is not working, but I would encourage you to look at those before and after pictures, as well as on our website. I have the 2021 beach nourishment webpage posted up, and I'm constantly updating the timeline with pictures of the construction as it's happening, as well as the after and post. Pre and post construction photos.
I think because this is the first time we've done renourishment in the middle of turtle season, there's a lot of concern. What would be the impact? We still don't know yet quite.
Right.
She hasn't rendered her final opinion.
Yes.
That'll be coming back.
And then I guess one final note too is this project did bleed over into the beginning of eagle nesting season. So there was one nest that was within our construction area, but we mitigated that by getting a eagle observer, and there's no disruption to the eagles whatsoever.
Daniel, this is Commissioner Mullins. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, a number of people that I know have asked me, well, we all know that turtles return to their birthplaces, if you will. And people have said to me, the fact that we're moving all of these nests onto Sanibel, do we then have to expect that we're going to get fewer nests on Captiva in the future because the turtles won't come back to Captiva because they've been born on Sanibel? And my answer, which seems pretty commonsensical, but people have questioned it, is my answer is they're not that precise. They don't carry a compass or a GPS to know the exact place. It's the general idea. But maybe we could get a definitive answer on that from one of the scientists, from Kelly or somebody else, so that we can publish something on it, because people have really expressed concern to me that by moving all of these nests, we're diminishing the opportunity of sea turtle nesting on Captiva in the future, if you get my meaning.
Absolutely, and I'll reach out to Kelly and see if she can provide something like that. In conversations with her, it's my understanding that they return to the general location of where they're hatched, not the precise beach that they're.
And that's what I've been saying, but if we could point to some specific piece and put it in a beach brief or a newsletter or whatever, that would be.
We also have false crawls, which is the
Yeah.
false crawl. Is it because they went to the wrong place and had to turn around and find another place? Or anyway.
Generally, it's either lighting or they don't find hospitable area they move off the beach for reasons like that.
Yeah, my point is we want to make sure that we can do beach renourishment during this time period in the future.
Yeah.
Without having any impact, because it really is a good time to do it from a tourist standpoint and whatever. I mean, there were even tourists that complained when the pipe was in front of our house, and they said, "How can you do this?" And I said, "Just wait 2 days,
Yeah.
and they'll be gone."
Well, Dick, I think that aside from saving the CEPD millions of dollars and allowing us to get a lot more sand, as we all know happened by choosing this period of time, the SCCF has been a beneficiary in terms of getting paid well and getting this research funding from us. And I think at some point we need to get that point out to the community in our newsletter explaining what a successful approach this has been. And I haven't heard any negative statistics. Sorry. I haven't heard any negative statistics as to whether or not it's hurt the corals or whatever, but that would be important to do that analysis and publish the research report at the end of it. I think that's a good point.
Okay, we'll move to new business. Up first in our discussion is the state lobbyist proposal, and Jennifer's going to talk about that.
Thank you, Treasurer Pyle. So on virtually, I have Nick Matthews from Becker, which is a lobbyist firm out of Tallahassee, that I have invited to this meeting in case there were any questions, or those commissioners who were not. We did have a workshop a few months ago, and we had Nick and his counterpart Ellen present to, I believe 3 of you were there. And since Chairman Neville, you led that workshop, I would like you to maybe introduce Nick and maybe talk a little bit about the discussion with your colleagues regarding your thoughts on the workshop and their presentation.
All right, I can do that. Let me, I'm just looking at the proposal for the paving. We need to talk about that. The $198,000 to pave, that's $14 a square foot. And I have granite pavers at my house and I paid $8, so we really need to talk about that. All right, so hold on, how do I get, I'm trying to get on, forgive me. Here we go. All right, why isn't my Zoom meeting show? Why? Because I hit the, wait a minute. There it is. Sorry about that. Okay, so I would just like to say, I usually have not a dim view on lobbying, but a question regarding redundancy. And sorry, my phone was ringing. And you know, the last 20 years, I really went through a lot of efforts to get to know a lot of state legislators, US senators, US congressmen, everything from, you know, a US senator all the way down to someone running for school board, of which, you know, for the past 20 years, and some of you have attended, many of these people have attended supportive fundraisers at my house. And so, and in getting to know these people, and just for the purpose of keeping a watchful eye on Captiva, a lot of lobbyists, you know, my question is, so tell me something that I don't know. Tell me a person that you know that I don't, or, you know, that sort of thing. And candidly, I was very impressed with the fact with this particular team that one of them is a former state senator. And the other gentleman is someone I don't know much about, but I got the impression that they were not, you know, they've also been doing pro bono work with Jennifer because of their relationship with Jennifer at you know, with Cape Coral. And when their presentation came about, it was a presentation really specific for what they thought was best for us. And the best way I can explain it is I was interviewing architects for a retail store that some of you might have actually been in, called the Franklin Shops in Fort Myers. And the firm that I went into, they literally emptied out their main office area and built a mini Franklin Shops, you know, with the suspended wood art and all that, just as a pitch. And I knew they were the right people. They really were heart and soul in it. So I just got the very enthusiastic impression. And even though there are certain things that we already have already, I just think that if we're going to work with someone, let's work with someone that actually, that I personally have a good feeling about. And for those that you that know me, I'm usually very reserved judgment when it comes to most lobbyists, because they'll do a lot of work, or, you know, we're paying for things that we don't need to be paid for versus paying for exact directives of what we really need. So I got a pretty good feeling about these people. And I asked Jennifer to please move forward as much as possible, because right now they have my blessing for what it's worth. And so with that, I guess, you know, I kind of approve of these people. And for those of you who know me, usually I hold my nose when it comes to most lobbyists.
Would you like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to hire the services of this particular firm. And it's the state lobbyist proposal. And the name of the firm again, please, forgive me because it's not on my screen.
Becker,
Yeah, okay. Becker?
yes.
Okay,
Renee, before we carry that motion, if you don't mind my interruption.
no, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I was
We
the
have
only
a
one who
second?
voted against the
Excuse me.
federal lobbyists.
Can we have a
Second,
second?
open discussion.
Well,
Yes.
if you do, well, my point is that you might have to modify the motion when you hear what I have to say. So just, if you don't mind, if we just suspend the motion for a minute. I
Okay,
voted against the federal lobbyist known as the Sandman, primarily because, and the 4 other commissioners at the time voted in favor, and we ultimately never got any of the federal money. So it turned out to be a big waste of money. It was a lot of money for us. But my issue was that the agreement should include reporting, metrics. How do we measure what they're actually doing? Not just whether they collect the money, because in the end, we get money from it, we get help or whatever it may be, that's good. But my feeling is, how do we track the performance along the way of what's being done, who they're meeting with, what reports do we get? And I think that any agreement we make needs to have, solid reporting. And if you were similar to what we talked about with the SCCF, justification of the time and money that is being spent along the way, as well as who they're meeting with and what the results are, and then metrics that we can measure to find out in the end, are they doing what we expect them to do?
So what do you propose the motion should say?
Well, I'm asking if the proposal incorporates that level of reporting.
All
Well,
right.
I think
didn't
maybe
see
it would be fair to ask Nick, if you want to speak a little bit to Commissioner Mullen's comment and, maybe talk about the deliverables that you presented in the workshop.
Well, Renee, you said you are very supportive of this. Does the deliverables mentioned in the workshop meet what I'm talking about relative to metrics and?
Well, the deliverables haven't been written out. I thought this process was going to be in the proposal, and you made a very good point. I thought we'd say we'd hire, but we have to have a MOU, in other words, we're saying, yes, we'll hire you, but we're not signing on the line till we have a nice contract.
That's all I'm saying.
Deliverable. So this is a
good memorandum of understanding, so we don't look after the fact and say.
That's right. No, exactly.
$60,000 and we have nothing to show for it.
Right. So what I'm saying, okay, so then the proposal should be that I would support the hiring based on the acceptance of a MOU. In other words, we have to have a contract before we say, yes, here's your money.
I'm sure they would prefer to have a contract.
Well, I know, but with the, what Mike is talking about.
Yeah.
In other words,
is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it, but who's gonna contact them to?
He's Nick.
Well,
Nick?
Mr. Chair, I'm online if you
here he is.
allow.
What?
He's there. You can tell he's got the most perfect hair.
I know. Well, as I'm saying, if you would like Nick to speak.
Yeah, I just want to know if it's the appropriate time to kind of follow up on what Mr. Mullins had mentioned.
That would be great, Nick. Thank you.
Discussion is in order.
Thank you again. My colleague Ellen, who joined me during the workshop, is in an airplane on the way to Tallahassee right now, so couldn't join us. So yes, certainly. Obviously, we look forward to talking through whatever level of reporting, kind of tracking that you would want. That is standard for us. One of the things that I kind of try to do is communicate on almost a daily basis, because we're in Tallahassee, things are moving quick. A Friday report, you're going to know everything before you even get that Friday afternoon legislative report. That's just kind of our style. So yeah, we're completely transparent. We want you to know what we're doing on a regular basis, but absolutely would agree to whatever formal kind of reporting that you would want.
Well, Nick, can you talk about the specifics of the potential deliverables that you discussed during your the meeting that we had a couple of months ago?
Yeah, certainly.
Because
Mr. Chairman,
Mike wasn't there at the meeting, and Mike really is going to be the liaison on all this, because I'm an optimist, but we already got we already had a proposal, and then when the MOU came, it didn't reflect the proposal at
And with all
all.
due respect, I'm not going to be the interface on this. I'm just trying to see that the board understands what it's doing and has an ability to measure that the work is being done that we expect. Let me also mention there were two lobbyists that were engaged in the past. One was engaged by South Seas, and I had made the proposal to Rick Hayduck, who was then the regional manager, that he join us and he paid part of the cost, and South Seas would be a big beneficiary of it. And he agreed to hire a lobbyist through their attorney. I want to say they were called Florida Partners or Floridian Partners, but in any event, whoever they were. And then he said, no, we'll pay for the whole thing. So they Blackstone hired a lobbyist firm to deal only with the state, paid $60,000 for it, and they yielded us several $1 million above what we had been expecting pursuant to the formula. Now, they didn't promise that on the front end, and I didn't get these metrics. I didn't get anything. I just relied on the fact that the money was coming out of South Seas and they would manage it. The other one, we hired the Sandman. You may know that term, Nick. There's somebody, a lobbyist in Washington that's done a lot of work on beach nourishment known as the Sandman. I forget the company. But we were paying $15,000 or $6,000 a month for several years. And even for a year after the Army Corps of Engineers pulled the rug out, and I did some digging and found out we were continuing to pay this money. We got nothing for it. So in the end, my only point is the experience has been both positive and negative. And Blackstone said that they managed it well. And they actually called me when their attorney met with the governor and said, we just came out of the governor's office. And he has said that he expects we'll get at least $7 million out of the project versus the 4 that the formula showed. And they delivered. So that's all I have to say. I've seen it work positively and negatively. I just want to make sure that we have an ability to manage it. And I'm not going to be the manager. Jennifer is going to be the manager. And Renee, you.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, but back to your kind of point on when we first met you guys for the workshop, we kind of touched on 3 kind of buckets that we thought we could immediately jump in and really kind of start moving the ball for the district. The first was the traditional beach management program at the state level. I mean, that is where a large portion of your state money is going to come. I've worked hands-on on that bucket of money for years. Prior to joining Becker, I was Broward County's in-house lobbyist, and we were going after significant amounts of money at the state level. And that pot of money is a volatile pot. It goes up, it can go down, and guaranteeing you have access to that in any given year is huge, because if that is a pot of money that funds the department ranks your project, and then they go down a list. And if they get to your number 16 on the list and there's only money for 15, you're out of it for that year. So tracking the beach funding and staying on top of that and kind of having an angle on that to know where you're going to land is a huge thing. The second one is really, really ripe right now, and we're like really excited about this one. This was the new resiliency funding that came out of the state this year. This is really kind of groundbreaking stuff for the state of Florida to put this type of investment into infrastructure around the state is pretty exciting. And the sad thing is, at the moment, the special districts like you guys, you're not eligible to directly apply for some of those funds. So you have to go through the county in certain scenarios, or you can go through a resiliency coalition. There are some weird ways. You got to jump through a lot of hoops to get access to some of this money. We want to jump in right away and change that. We think there's a good chance that there could be some follow-up legislation. We'll call it kind of a glitch bill that looks backward and says, all right, now we've got this really incredible thing happening. What are the problems as we're starting to roll it out? And one of the problems we're going to raise is saying, look, this program just creates a bunch of barriers for different types of entities, different political subdivisions of the state to access this money for no reason. That's one thing I think we can immediately tackle right away. We've kind of started probing some of those conversations over the last couple of weeks in Tallahassee, and it's been well received. And it's kind of no one can make a good argument as to why a special district shouldn't be an applicant, just like a small city can be an applicant, or even some of the small counties in this state that don't have a ton of population. So those are like things that we will be immediately reporting on: who we're talking to, how often is their draft language out, here's what it looks like. We want to talk to you and Jennifer and maybe even your engineers to make sure it matches like that. That's the kind of communication on a weekly basis, you'll get from us. And just so you understand, we are in this, today starts the second committee week leading up to the legislative session. And legislative session will begin in January. That's the constitutionally obligated 60 days. And it's funny, the only thing the legislature is really required to do is pass a balanced budget. They don't have to pass anything else, but our goal is to make sure they pass some good stuff on, ideally, like I said, fixing the glitches in that original resiliency legislation. The third thing that we touched on was supporting the district in any way, shape, or form with modernizing your documents, getting a local bill to expand your mission or narrow your mission or make you find ways to make you eligible for other funding, whatever you need to do through kind of a local bill process to go through your delegation members and get up to Tallahassee. We are ready, willing, and able to do. We have a great relationship with your delegation, but just kind of putting those things in motion is why you hire folks like us to stay on top of that, because that local bill process is it's a regimented one. There are a lot of deadlines, and you've got to be ahead of the curve with respect to some of that stuff to put yourself in a good position in Tallahassee. So those were just kind of three areas that we thought, number one, right for the district, makes sense for the district, and two, things that we can jump in and move the needle on immediately. And that was kind of the gist of our conversations, Mr. Chairman.
Nick, this is Mike Mullins again. On the first of your 3 points, I just want to say that we already pay a lobbying fee to the Florida Shore and Beach Preservation Association, and we're part of that organization and active with it. And they actually do the job of monitoring where we stand on that list and whether we have to fill out LGFRs and so on, local government funding requests and other things. So they do a pretty good job of keeping us up to date, and our staff have to pay attention to it. But also Aptum, I see that Tom Piero is still on board, but Aptum and the team that's worked on the project also keep an eye on that stuff for us over the years. So I wouldn't put too much attention on that. It's nice if we get one more reminder, but we already have a bunch of sets of eyes to make sure that we get in there. The issue is getting us bumped up. If we're number 16 and they're cutting the funding off at 15, what do we have to do to get ourselves higher on the list and being aware of that? And both organizations remind us of where we stand. That's the FSBPA. And Pepper or Chino, you may know Pepper, but Pepper.
I'm an ex officio member of the board of directors of the FSBPA.
Okay, good. So you know that they do that, and they do.
I know the FSBPA very well. Great, honestly, one of the best statewide trade associations I've encountered. Incredible group.
I agree 100%. So
you guys have great engineers. The Aptum team is incredible too. Worked with folks from the Aptum team over the years. What I will say is
Aptum tends to communicate with us when it comes close to deadlines for these things to make sure that we're aware of them and we stay on top and we provide. So what I'm saying is that's important to have another set of eyes on that, but truthfully, that's less what we need from you. The second piece on resiliency is an extremely important point, because I think that it's clear to me, and it's been clear to former attorneys, I don't know if Ralph's taken a position on it yet, I think he has, that our legislation, our enabling legislation, makes it very clear that we're responsible for anything that causes erosion on Captiva, on all the tidal waters of Captiva, the full perimeter of the island. So, and I asked a specific analysis of our prior attorney who'd been involved with the FSBPA and Captiva since the 1980s, Nancy Stroud, who retired from working for us last year, I believe it was. And she confirmed that we are, that's resiliency, essentially. Getting money for it and convincing the state is important, but it is within our mandate already, and it's in our enabling legislation. So I want to say that's extremely important and the biggest area where we should get a return. And your third point again was, would you repeat that for me?
Certainly. I know there was some conversation about modernizing, updating the district documents, or maybe your mission, or what do you need to if there is something you want to expand your mission, does that require a local bill, and then do we need to go to Tallahassee with that kind of stuff? That's the kind of stuff we're having.
Because I have a question about that. Over the years, I thought the name Captiva Erosion Prevention District was a misnomer. And I talked to our former attorney about, can we call ourselves the Beach Preservation District, or a variety of other things, Captiva Environmental Protection District or whatever. And what I was told over the years by Nancy Stroud and others at the FSBPA, although not Pepperoncino, but previous president, you probably knew, Debbie Flack. And what I was told is that the state doesn't generally like special districts, and should be very careful not to open up our kimono to them on issues, because we might wind up having the whole idea of having a special district for erosion challenge. Now, I was mixed about that, whether that's a reasonable opinion or not. I spoke to a state senator, Mike Bennett, who Renee brought to Captiva, and we did a lot of work with in the past. And he said, no problem. Nobody's going to stand in the way of a local bill as long as your local delegation is for it. But I'm just curious about your opinion of that. Is that something that we really want to open that up? Is it a Pandora's box, or is it something that we could actually affect change to?
Honestly, I wouldn't be as worried as some of those folks were about it. I think it's very unlikely, considering who would be working on it with us, going through the delegation there that is, I think, all Republican. I don't see it somehow flipping on our face and working against us. I think that kind of sentiment against smaller special districts, I think it's kind of an outdated thing from previous administrations. I don't know if there's a common sense thing, if there's a better government argument, if there's an efficiency argument, and there's something that can allow us to do our jobs better than we were doing before. I don't see why we wouldn't have a good chance at passing something. I wouldn't worry about it blowing up on us.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that, because I've often questioned why there was such trepidation about entering into that area. And maybe we will look at the name. I wouldn't do it just for the purpose of a name change, but if there's other things we're looking at, we might want to consider that. And my feeling is that we do a lot more, and a lot of it we're interpreting, what beach preservation districts do. We're interpreting what our enabling legislation says, and we try to broaden it to do more things to support Captiva, because we're the only local tax entity, if you will. Fire department's interested in emergencies and first response and so on. We're responsible for everything associated with beach and things.
The only piece I would, anything that could be kind of linked to or perceived as some sort of tax increase would be a problem. You wouldn't want to do anything that someone could construe as a tax increase or expanding your taxing authority. We would just want to be careful around those types of things.
Okay, I feel the same way, so that's good. Okay, Renee, it's your.
No, I have another question. So bottom line, pardon me for being in the shadows. There's just a lot of light behind me.
Man of mystery.
But for the rest of the board to hear, could you tell us in sheer layman's terms, knowing that we're exploring a sea level rise resiliency campaign to build back the rear of the island like we've so successfully done in the front of the Gulf side, from a specificity perspective, here's sort of an outline, and that is that we are now currently, and I don't know if Aptum is still on the phone or not, still on the meeting, but Aptum knows that in a couple of years, it would be really nice to have a set of engineered plans that would be accepted for permitting to somehow create some kind of resiliency in the bay, a living seawall, and things of that nature. So where we would build, so to sort of incorporate what we've been doing since 1988 on the front side. So,
yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may, that is what you are saying, and kind of how you're thinking through that is precisely the mission and the goal of the Resilient Florida Grant Program. There is a bucket of money to help political subdivisions, local governments, districts, once we make that change, to help you plan, design, study what that looks like. And then once you kind of get through and you truly understand it, you studied it, you've got plans, then there's a pot of money to help you with the hard infrastructure. And the infrastructure
the issue that we have is there's like a field of locusts right now that are wanting to do our plans that we already have. We have helped subsidize a local community panel plan with their sea level rise committee. We've also committed $75,000 towards a lady who's acting as a C-level rise captain for the SCCF. But at the end of the day, if we didn't do any of that, normally we just go to Aptum and say, whip up a set of plans, let's get them permitted. You need 2 years, you need a couple $100,000, $250,000, whatever, let's go. But so the conversations that we've had with Aptum is say, look, you know what's going on. You know, already we're getting some studies out there. We're subsidizing some studies. But at the end of the day, we don't want to have 2 years from now, lots of studies. We need A, identification of funds, and B, an actual critical path so that we're not where we are now 2 years from now. So we are in the throes already. But the thing is, it's like locusts, and I'm very fearful that there'll be a lot of spinning plates going in omnidirections, if you will. So my question to you is, how can you, as a lobbyist firm, create two situations? One, permittable legislation, and two, finding of grants, knowing that we're doing everything possible, not just with our main team, which is Aptum, but reaching out to other people, and whatever material they can glean will then get processed to Aptum, because we are the entity that will be doing this. It's not going to be an ad hoc committee or something like that.
Renee, can I interrupt for a second or add?
I'm done. That's my question.
But I want to add to it before Nick answers it.
Okay.
On the beach side, by the way, we've done work in the past. We've done work on the bay side in the past, actually moved sand from there over to the beaches. But the beach work, the Nourishment Project, is done under what we call a comprehensive beach management plan, which is something that was approved, actually originally funded somewhat by the DEP. And it's the basis on which we go forward and do the renourishment work we do and build up the resiliency on the beach side of the island. I've talked to some people in Tallahassee in the past, and they said what you need is a similar kind of thing for the bay side, but a comprehensive shore management program or a comprehensive shore resiliency program. And that's something that we might be able to get funding from the DEP to help with. Are you familiar with similar things being done in other communities, other counties, for this comprehensive plan to protect the non-beach side of the islands or the shorelines?
Communities all over Florida are really digging into especially the flooding and resiliency issue. Even some of the real larger communities are doing countywide assessments to understand what vulnerability assessments to understand where the problems are, and they're going to develop their own work plan. Certainly, yes. I think the good thing about what the state has in place and what we can accomplish with just a tweak is you as the district would be the applicant. You would be choosing what project you'd be applying for, when you want it delivered, in coordination with your engineers and us. We would kind of all brainstorm on what we think the right timing is, the application cycle and all those types of things. So, Mr. Chair, some of the other groups, great if they can provide input or support of some sort, but you're behind the wheel on what projects we would be applying for, because you'd be the grant recipient here. So I think I've got faith with Aptum and your in-house team. You could come up with a pretty logical group of projects to accomplish the stuff on the backside of the island, certainly. I think it probably, Mr. Mullins, back to your point, it probably looks better, it looks more organized if you kind of have a really thoughtful work plan or a comprehensive plan. I would imagine that always looks better, that there's something thoughtful and deliberate, as opposed to, holy crap, this one area, let's throw some sand at it or throw some, a seawall at it. I think your point is right. Yes, you would probably want to spend a little bit of time to know, and this is informed by the vulnerability assessment, I think. Like where's the most acute need? And I think you probably, again, talking with the engineers who know this stuff better than anybody, kind of how do you phase these things in based on the reality of your own funding and then the availability of the funding at the state level. But yeah, I would think it would be smart to do kind of a something that's really guided by your vulnerability study, which you may have done already, but you may have to get a new one. It may not comport to the new rules, but those are all the things we need to work on.
To that point, I would add to what Chair Maville was saying, and that is that these other groups, particularly the Captiva Community Panel, have done a lot of work on the vulnerability study. And I think Mike, what's his name in the chapter?
Reese.
Yeah, Mike Severese. Yeah, exactly. He's done some work. And so I think we could probably bring that current and have a very up-to-date vulnerability study. But beyond that, Nicole Sharp, I don't think she's with us still. She was here earlier, but she's done work in Broward County. Oh, yeah, good. She's done a lot of work, and she and Tom both presented to the Captiva Community Panel, and they've done extensive work in the area of comprehensive shore management programs relative to resiliency, including helping out down in Collier County and elsewhere. So do you want to talk to that at all, Nicole? Because I think we could get a great deal of support for them on that comprehensive shore management plan.
Yes, so Nick and I both have experience working together and collaborating in different areas. And at Active, we have our Florida resiliency team and nationwide resiliency team. So we know what to look for, what these grants need, what type of feasibility studies are needed to be implemented. And we're working with Collier County on their feasibility study with the Corps of Engineers. So we're seeing what's working well in other communities, what's not working well, what's being bought in by the resource agencies. Because it's really great if you have a concept, but if it's not a permittable project, it's not going to help you out if you can't implement it to actually help protect the island. So we are active in the Florida community, seeing what is working as a holistic approach to develop these comprehensive adaptation plans for climate change and sea level rise. And Nick worked in Broward County. They're one of Southeast Florida's leading experts in what to do, what's working well, what's being regionally accepted, and working with regional climate change compacts and trying to think holistically as a region and collaborating not only with the CEPD, but collaborating with the SCCF, their resiliency lead, Lee County, Sanibel. It's going to be a collaborative effort. So I think, it's something that we're experienced in doing, and I think Nick's firm is also. So we definitely are capable of assisting with the feasibility studies and the regional coordination as needed.
So Nick, which leads me to the big question is, how is your firm going to be able to identify at least $1 million for the next 2 years to help us get all of this done?
Well, that's a great question. And it starts with the fact that, we're talking about an updated vulnerability assessment or vulnerability study, a long-term plan, data gathering. You aren't eligible to apply for that money right now by an oversight in how they drafted the bill, or we've talked, it doesn't sound like it was intentional. It's kind of a blind spot in the legislation. So there is $500 million and over a couple of years sitting at the state that you cannot apply directly for. I mean, first and foremost, that's the first fix is making sure you're an eligible applicant
directly, because right now the community panel is going through Sanibel. Sanibel's asking, and then it's
you're sent to go talk to the water management district or talk to the county, and then the county thinks you're competing against their own asks.
Right, exactly.
So we need to fix that. So that's the path to $1 million, or I don't know if it's $1 million.
Well, that's
whatever.
I'm just picking a number to get the permits okayed, and then the construction begins. And that's
honestly, I think that's the thing from a true kind of traditional legislative fix, because session is around the corner. Yeah. I mean, Ellen is flying to Tallahassee now to have these conversations. I think that's priority number one.
Right, I agree. So, how doable do you think it is, this session?
We believe we have good reason to believe that there is the political will to have, and we keep calling it a glitch bill. So, and this is a common thing. They'll come back a year or two after something big passes, and God bless government, they don't get anything right the first time, especially a program this big. So we feel we feel like there's a pretty good chance. Absolutely, we're confident.
Does it have to have a lot of visibility, or is it something that could just be attached to a similar bill where it just kind of passes through and not a big deal?
Anything's possible. I don't know what the likelihood of just kind of slipping an amendment into something that doesn't touch on the large resiliency program. Look, I don't think we have to rely on that. The resiliency program was voted on, I think, there was only one person who voted against it. It had bipartisan support. It's a historic thing for the state. It's not something anyone's hiding from. It's a thing that people on both sides of the aisle are prideful of. So
I'm just thinking, why couldn't it be amendment? Because it would be a simple amendment to say special districts such as the Captiva Erosion Prevention District would also be included because of the nature of their work, since they accidentally and not on purpose were left out of the first one. I mean,
I would
that's
imagine I just think there's going to be a handful of other things they want to clean up. So it's probably more likely there is a vehicle that has the Department of Environmental Protection and the governor's office agreeing to some changes. And that's the kind of, you're better on that vehicle than you are trying to slip stuff into.
Well, I don't mean slipping in. I'm just saying getting it approved, however, however it's done, instead of making a big deal about it. Just, I'm not.
Listen, we could explore a standalone piece of legislation to just address this one particular issue, and we certainly can explore that. But I believe there is going to be a package that moves forward with the goal of addressing some of the things people around the state are saying, the blind spots in this legislation.
And who would be the decision maker to approve it in the state legislature?
Well, so, our firm, Ellen specifically, very intimately involved with the passage of that legislation. She's been in regular talks with the Department of Environmental Protection, the American Flood Coalition. The American Flood Coalition was the entity that really moved that aggressively forward. We represent the American Flood Coalition. I think the department is seeing and understands that there are some issues in the bill, and ideally it's a department package almost that the state agency brings forward, and we're a part of that.
So Renee, with all due respect, I kind of interrupted you earlier because I wanted to put, some more complexion to this discussion, but if you want to go forward at this point in time and complete your motion.
Is that a hint?
No, I'm just saying, I know I interrupted you and I.
No, that's fine. Your
Is there a second to the motion?
Your questions were incredibly valid. And
I'd like to second the motion.
yeah, the
Yes,
motion's already been,
Vice
all right. All
Okay,
right.
any further discussion about hiring the lobbying firm for $6,000 a month?
No.
Yes, I would be against it.
Okay.
I'm only one voice.
Well, your discussion, what do you want to say in your discussion, Mary?
Well, basically, there's so many people out there who love us. Why get involved with anything more than we got on our plate right now? You're talking about lobbyists. I mean, working with CBS, I work with a number of lobbyists. And if you got something that you're really going after, that's on your plate, you got a chance. Otherwise, you don't.
I think the argument here is that.
But it's money. I mean,
I think the argument here is that there is now $500 million
yeah.
in the Florida tax base
Mhm.
that's going to be available to address resiliency.
Right.
And I think the actions of the CEPD over the last year and a half or so, with our cooperation with the community panel and with SCCF and
Right.
whatever, that we are moving in a direction that probably will change a lot of things that CEPD does. I mean, we will continue to do the beach renourishment. We're still going to do that. We were able to walk and chew gum at the same time over the last year. We got the resiliency stuff started. We got the arrangement with SCCF started, and we got beach renourishment. So I think we have enough bandwidth to handle all this stuff. But
Plus, I'd like to add something for Harry. Harry, with the $500 million up for grabs, I think we'd be tar and feathered by the community if they didn't say, well, who did you get? Did you get the best? Did you get the best to go and get that money for us? And we'd say, we think we did. Oh, no, we didn't want to do it because we want to save $6,000. We get killed. I mean,
It's not saving 6,000 though. It's saving 6,000 a month.
yeah, $6 a month.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's fair.
That is up.
But with me, you know they're gonna work. I follow up.
Chair Pyle, I have a point of clarification.
Yeah.
Yes,
At the beginning, when we talked about the fact that we don't have a physical quorum for this meeting, I'm in favor of us going forward and directing the staff to draw up a contract and put deliverables in it and so on and so forth. But are we able to approve this in this meeting without a physical quorum?
Has to be ratified, but yes, we can. That's what I was told.
All right, so why don't we just go forward and have the staff negotiate or not negotiate, but put an agreement together with deliverables and clarify these points that have been raised. And then when we have the next board meeting in November, we vote on the full package, which would include the contract at that point, I would hope.
I agree with that.
So then,
But we-
just to clarify,
But
Just to
excuse me,
clarify-
we want to give them a good faith that should this pass, because I certainly approve it and I think it will pass. We just want them to know that it's not iffy. We don't want to leave them.
Well, I think you made the motion and under
Yeah.
our rules of procedure, you have the privilege of calling the vote.
I'm calling the vote right now.
Chairman Hill,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sylvia,
Aye.
Secretary Kaiser,
I'll go along with it, but
Duly noted, Harry. You're a good
50,
man.
40, but I'll vote yes.
Thank
Because
you.
it's good over the long run, as long as we don't spread everybody out too far. Because right now, we're in a project that everybody I talk to, and I know from here and from Mike.
With respect, though, we're in the middle of a vote. We really can't be going through discussion again, Harry.
Okay. I'll vote
It
for it.
is
Treasurer Pyle,
aye.
unanimous.
Commissioner Mullins,
Aye.
Okay.
And then we finally get together, huh?
The motion is passed unanimously. The next thing that was on the agenda was hearing from Carrie Schuman from SCCF, and we're going to delay that until the November meeting there. And then the last thing here is an administrative report from our administrative officer, Jennifer.
thank you, Treasurer Powell. I'll try to get through this quickly because I know Mr. Kaiser is indicating he has to leave soon.
Yes.
So the biggest thing on, well, there's two big things, I guess, on my list. The first thing would be staffing changes. As many of you know, John Riegert is no longer with the CEPD. Lindsay Ford was one of our part-time, or she was our part-time parking lot attendant who we actually moved into the office to help us 3 days a week. And what we quickly learned is that we would like to add some additional infrastructure by keeping Ms. Ford as a part-time person in the office. She can help as we're moving some of these new initiatives forward once the project is finished. And we would like to rehire for John's position. I apologize, but Ralph and I went back and forth over the weekend on some of the language because I did change this contract to reflect a few things. First of all, overall, we'll be saving about $2,000 from this contract versus what the contract we had with our previous director of admin. I also, due to inflation and cost of living and the cost of insurance, I increased the insurance stipend from $14,400 to $15,000 even, giving an additional $600. But again, we still stay under $2,000 difference from the previous contract. The last thing that I changed that I thought was very important was the vacation piece, the vacation benefit in terms of when an employee resigns or they're terminated. We want to pay out vacation, unpaid vacation time. However, we want to do that on an accrual. So in other words, if somebody gets hired and we have to terminate them after 30 days, the contract, I want the contract to be very clear that we'll pay for unpaid vacation time that isn't used, but it will be done on an accrual. Right now, the current contracts for all administrative employees state that vacation time will not be paid out in the event that someone leaves. And I really wanted to change that because I think it's more fair to the organization as well as to the employees. So we still have time, if there's a transition, that we can transition new employees in and train them. So that's one of the reasons I added that language as well.
Director Nelson, can I just get a point of clarification on that? So what I saw when I read this agreement is that if somebody was with us for 6 months, they would only have accrued benefits sufficient to that 6 months. And so what would get paid out is any unused portion up to, let's say normally it was 2 weeks vacation, they would get whatever's left from their 1 week vacation. Is that how, am I interpreting it correctly?
Yes, that's
And
correct.
similarly for a time off and things of that nature. Does
Right,
that
not
similarly- hold on, does that similarly apply to when you say you want to add $15,000 for benefits for the year? Does it apply to all these stipends and other things as well?
The stipends are not, the stipends are done monthly. So they're actually, that was something that you all had in previous employee contracts where you
We
paid
did.
out that stipend monthly. So
But I
once,
thought the way the agreement read, it quoted it as an annualized number, and I think it should be quoted as a monthly number, or it should be adjusted so that it's also apportioned, is what you're saying, apportioned according to the amount of time somebody is there. It just seemed to me to be a little unclear on the stipends. I understood it correctly.
sure, and we can certainly make that adjustment. I am bringing this forward to the board because it's unclear in our rules of procedure in terms of, I know that in the past, you all have had to approve employee contracts because you didn't have an executive director / administrator in this role. And so I wanted to clarify with you all and obviously be transparent by bringing this contract forward. Deanna and I have had several interviews with this individual, feel he would be an incredible fit due to his background, and would like to try to get him on board as soon as possible, barring his notice at his previous job or his current job. So I just wanted to bring this forward to you all. We can absolutely tighten up the language, Mike, and make it much more clear. If you prefer, we can certainly do that.
I'm just saying, I agree with you that substantially what we're saying is they accrue and earn benefits based on the amount of time they're there. They're there for a full year, they accrue and earn the full benefit. If they leave earlier or they're hired mid-year or whatever, like this case, this guy would be hired, say in November. He would be getting, 1/6 of the benefits in this year. And then he would earn full benefits if he's here through all of next year. And that would apply to all the benefits, not just to the days off. It was clear about the days off, that he's entitled to a vacation, so on. Just fix that. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, yes, we can do that. We can make that a little bit more clear, no problem. So I'm gonna move forward with that contract, but I wanted to clarify that I don't necessarily need an approval on it. Is that correct? Because in our rules of procedure, it states contracts, but it indicates more vendor contracts. So I want to clarify that with you all. Obviously, my contract is different because I report to you all. So I just wanted to make sure. And then as Ralph and I kind of talked through all of this over the weekend, we thought about possibly doing some updates to standard operating procedures that then gives back, I guess, or makes clear the management of the administrative staff is to the executive director. We just need to clarify some language in that. So.
What say you, Chairman Maville?
Yeah, I guess,
Excuse
yes.
me, now I have to apologize. There were some people that were lost because our driveway's over half a mile long. They were trying to get to the state park. And so I showed them how to get there. And then they were an older couple. And I said, look, why don't you park there? And then you just go on my property and go to the overlook. And then they said they were from Israel, and I knew the kibbutz, and it was like one of those magic moments. So I just came back and I didn't hear a damn thing. So I apologize, but my sincerity is my biggest weapon.
Okay, so if I may then, Jennifer, I agree that the executive director should be able to put this together, and as long as it's within, a line item budget that we've approved, which we said we would do that in a budget amendment, it's fine with me. I have to take my wife to an appointment for a blood draw, so I need to leave now.
Okay.
So I'm in support of this. You know, what we're looking to do here, make those changes to the agreement. I'm fine with it.
Okay.
For the strategic planning, the general concept, I'm in support of. What is the DNS port? That's the only thing I didn't know.
That is actually, we're gonna convert our emails over to Microsoft emails. The reason is we already purchased, yeah, we're gonna just convert that over.
That's really up to you guys to decide what's
Okay.
going to work for you.
Super.
I apologize.
I have a question on the staffing changes.
Yes.
Is this adding any staff?
We would be adding an additional 24 hours a week to the administrative staff, to the office.
So it's half-time.
It's gonna be halftime. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, tell us about the dredge boat ride and the ILA. Is
Okay,
the
great. So.
interlocal agreement, I thought that would take a little time of discussion unless I'm missing
Well,
something.
Well, the interlocal agreement is the interlocal agreement that comes from Lee County Natural Resources, and it's to reimburse, it's due to the reimbursement for our project, for the renourishment project. So what this ILA agreement does is it clarifies what the county will be paying us percentage wise.
Is it different than what they're paying us now?
Yes, it's different from the previous project, if that's what you're asking.
No, what's the difference with this project versus the last project?
That's.
So this is, if you recall, when we found the error in the calculation of Dr. Schwab's report, the recreation benefit percentage, it's, they're using that calculation to formulate what they're gonna pay us based off the current project, once we finalize costs, in addition to what Jennifer was able to look through, Chairman Wu.
Okay,
Yes, and we sent that out in your packet, and I'm happy to resend a spreadsheet if you'd like to see the spreadsheet of the actual number. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because we were notified by Lee County last week that the commissioners are going to be voting on this on their October 19th meeting, so next Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. So Dana and I plan to be there, and I wanted to let you all know, so if you're in town and you'd like to go to the Board of County Commissioners meeting with us, more than welcome.
is there anything controversial about it?
No. Nothing
So we
controversial.
expect to be just a standard vote of the commissioners to approve it.
Yes, the only thing is that Commissioner Wayne had met with Commissioner Mullins and myself back in May, along with staff, and had discussed giving the CEPD an additional $1 million for the roadway along the Gulf. And that is something that I believe Commissioner Manning, who was in the seat prior to Commissioner Ruane, had committed to the CEPD. So he is following that precedent. So that will be an additional $1 million to what is given to us, or what was initially sent to us in the interlocal agreement. So this is their voting meeting, so they vote on it. And then I anticipate after the meeting, we'll get an updated interlocal agreement, should that additional $1 million be approved, plus the higher percentage for the recreational percentage, the mistake that we found in the numbers from Dr. Strong's study.
What happens if it's not?
And it's not approved. If it's not approved,
No, it's a big thing.
I am pretty confident, Chairman Ruane,
Oh, yeah, he should.
he's been incredibly good to this island and the
Right.
residents on it.
Right.
And I think that he will plead a good case for us, if, knowing him and knowing his background. And
So
his,
if it passes, we'll get another $1 million that we weren't expecting.
correct.
And if
Well,
anyone says no against it, they'll get a phone call. So we already know we got 2 votes with Cecil, and if the other ones just didn't get a call, they'll get a call. And they'll change their mind.
And then the dredge boat.
Yeah,
ride.
so I sent you all the article that was done, or sorry, the interview that was done from NBC2. We took Congressman Donald along with Mayor Howie Smith from the city of Sanibel and James Evans from the SCCF out on a boat ride to
I
look.
had a question. Why was Holly Smith involved?
Because as our partner,
Partner what?
our partner for the future with coastal resiliency and sea level rise efforts, I felt it was important to invite her to come along so that she could learn
So
more.
the same reason that James Evans came, Holly Smith representing
Sanibel.
Sanibel.
Mhm.
But what about the resiliency manager for Sanibel?
No, we had James Evans
Yeah.
come, given that he's the policy director there.
Well, he's
And-
not anymore. He's at SCCF. Who's the policy director at Sanibel?
No, I brought Mayor Smith from Sanibel as their representative and James Evans from SCC.
But she's not the resiliency. She's
And
not
she voted against getting beach renourishment during this project.
exactly.
Well, in any case, looking to the future and what we're trying to do strategically moving forward,
Did a good political move, but
I felt it was very important to invite our neighbors and the leader of our
Mhm.
neighbors, in addition to James Evans from SCCF as policy director from SCCF, to bring him along. One of the reasons the congressman,
But you didn't bring the policy director from Sanibel. Do you know who it is?
I cannot remember. the
I think
individual's
you
name.
should get to know that particular person, because
Okay.
we always felt that we were covered by having James Evans in our.
that's a good point, Dick.
Okay, no problem, happy to.
I think,
And mayor changes every 3 years in Sanibel. In fact, it seems like.
And usually they're very provincial. That's the problem. They've had, with
Yes.
the exception of Kevin Ruane, they've all been very provincial. Had, the world stops in Sanibel, including Captiva, and it's nothing, it's just the way they're wired. And really Kevin was an exception. He was
Yeah.
not
Well, I
the,
feel like Mayor Smith is an exception too. I feel like she's a good advocate, and especially having been on that boat ride, understanding now what everything looks like. I feel that, in moving forward and in the future, I think it's important.
there's
to
no
try to-
question her heart's in the right place. The big question is, I don't know, think she has the frame of reference when she might be being led astray by staff, such as
Right.
not joining in on the beach renourishment. That's the bottom line. So you're
But
dealing
I-
with a provincial mindset, just, and if you
I-
can educate her, that'd be great.
And that's exactly why she joined us. Nicole from Opton did a fantastic job educating all the leaders that were on the boat about the project and the importance of it.
How was the boat trip?
It was amazing. We took Jay Brown's boat
Mhm.
and we had a great group. We had a great group that asked lots of good questions. Congressman Donalds wanted to know about the Army Corps and what happened in the past with them. So we were able to educate him on
Where'd
that.
they pick you up?
We went to Jay Brown's house and we left from his dock. Everybody met there.
And they took you over to the first boat?
Yep, took us out to the dredge boat.
Jay,
It was,
Harry,
Alan
they
Hart.
took him in his $4 million yacht.
Oh.
It's so that because the congressman, the 90% of the time they got to raise money. So I called Jay up and said, Jay, you game for this? That way you could, because I know
Uh-huh.
they'll
Oh, no, it was
all over
right.
you. And it worked like a charm.
I just wanted to make sure that Holly Smith
Didn't use her time with the congressman to lobby for Sanibel issues. And I don't know how you avoided that.
I was gonna say, that's impossible.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. Listen, we seized the high road, Dick. What Jennifer did was seize the high road by inviting her. And believe me, I'll make sure she understands that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, is there any other commissioners? Do you have any closing comments?
No, I just think the project is going along great. Everybody seems to be happy. But there aren't many people back here to see it.
Yeah.
Don't anybody kid you.
Yeah.
But it's really, we know what we're doing, people say, and we've.
Well, I know a year and a half ago when I first came on the board, there was nothing talked about at the meeting about what was going to happen at the renourishment. And I
I
thought,
know.
they're not doing anything yet about renourishment, and you guys pulled
And
it
that's our
off.
main function,
Yeah, right.
yeah, but it all comes together.
But they're Dick, they're not doing anything about renourishment because they get a lot of, historically, the sand travels south. And
Right.
been a significant increase, so they're getting a free pass. And
Yeah.
if I were in their position, I kind of understand.
No, she's doing what she should be doing for her benefit. I was just,
Right,
it should have been,
Reminding us.
it should have been a Captiva,
Right.
gathering, and so,
No,
if
it's
there
a
is,
good point, but the other side is, they own the rights to Turner Beach, and they were very gracious about surrendering the beach and losing all that revenue and access. So, in the grand scheme of things, we respect her decision, but I think there should be an education process to think not just of Sanibel, but think of Captiva and Sanibel when it comes to a Captiva situation. But,
if no one has any other business, I,
well, one thing you should do, you should talk about your trip in the local papers or wherever, so that people on the island around here know about it.
Well, I sent you a link. We did have a reporter on board.
Yeah,
She did a great story. So
Where?
if you go on your emails and you click on the link,
yeah, but
the
not
news.
on the local paper.
well, it's on the new, it was on the television and all over our social media and their social media.
was it in the current Captiva Current?
Yeah, she sent everyone a link on the NBC thing. That's a good question. Was it on the Current?
No, I don't think
I'm
so.
surprised.
Or the Sun?
We have to
Oh.
develop a better relationship.
Because it is a great story.
Yeah.
But,
Make sure the Captiva Current, the Islander, make sure the
Just
Islander and
remind
the
me.
Sun, if your social guys are reaching out to other
Okay.
places. Because that's where a lot of the local people get their information.
Yes,
It's true.
Okay,
they get it from the post office.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, me.
Jennifer, take them to lunch. They barely pay their reporters. They'll love you for it.
okay, I'll do that.
Okay, if no one has any other business, I motion to adjourn the meeting. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Great stuff. Take care, everybody. Bye, Jennifer. Bye, Harry.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm just trying to get